Yo, what's going on YouTube and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte and today we are taking a look at my season preview, of course, from my hometown New York Islanders. So, with that out of the way, let's get into the Islanders. So, this has been an interesting summer for the Islanders because, well, it's a typical Lou Lamoriello summer. Not much really happened. And looking at the Islanders' moves, they didn't lose a lot of pieces, but they really didn't add anything either. So, it's one of those things where you're looking at the Islanders and you're saying to yourself, they kind of stayed stale. They're staying stagnant. And you look around the division, and a lot of teams have gotten a lot better and improved. You look in Pittsburgh, they've added Erik Karlsson. You look at the Devils, they've added some depth scoring. The Rangers have made some moves. And it seems like the Islanders are the only one of the few teams that just kind of stood still. So the way I look at the Islanders, I am a little bit concerned going into this season, so we're going to take a look at that today. So, the really change to the New York Islanders in terms of an addition is adding Carson Kuhlman, which, again, is a guy that really hasn't played much in the NHL. And to be honest with you, I hope he's not in the Islanders' opening night roster. And this isn't a discredit to Kuhlman, but the Islanders are a team that if you're talking about trying to make the playoffs and even win that division, Carson Kuhlman cannot be in your lineup. And, I'm trying to say this in the best way I can, but, if I'm the New York Islanders, you got to be looking at a little bit more in terms of additions to make this team a legit contender, and they just were not able to do that. Terms of guys that left, Parker Witherspoon no longer with the organization. I really liked him as a promising prospect on defense, but I think there's too much going on the blue line, and it just wasn't going to work out. So that's what we're looking at there. We also saw Josh Bailey get traded to Chicago, where now he is an unrestricted free agent. So we'll see what happens there. And same thing for Zach Parise. I think the Islanders are still trying to sign Zach Parise. I don't know what's necessarily going on there. But keep an eye out for Zach Parise. The Islanders might still be looking around there to see what they do. Parise has announced that he's retiring, but we also haven't heard anything from the Islanders. Same thing for Josh Bailey. I don't know what those guys are really waiting on to see if there's some kind of offer. Maybe they're just thinking about it. I don't know, but those are really the only guys that left. In terms of rookies to watch this season for the Islanders, it's a pretty small list, unfortunately, but some of the guys could be impact players depending on how things work out. So the first guy we are looking at for the Islanders up front is, we saw a little bit of these guys before, but Simon Holmstrom, William Dufour, he only played one game with the Islanders last season, but he played quite well with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, picking up 48 points in 69 games last season. So keep an eye out for the young Quebec native. He is definitely a guy, as an Islanders fan, I am quite excited about, especially he's 21 years old, and, everyone talks about the Islanders pipeline not being that good. I think William Dufour would have something to say about that. He's a really good prospect. Played with the QMJHL St. John's Sea Dogs. Played really well there, over 100-point seasons. So he's definitely a guy I wouldn't say is a bad prospect for the Islanders. Ruslan Ishakov is another one. This is one I'm really interested to see what happens with because he had 51 points in 69 games last season with the Sound Tigers. Definitely a guy that I'm keeping an eye on. And you look at the last couple years before that, he's played in the NCAA, he played with TPS Turku in Liga, played in the DEL. So he's definitely been bouncing around a lot, but Ishakov is definitely I wouldn't even consider him a prospect at this point, considering he is 23 years old. But this is a guy I expect to play in the lineup for the Islanders at some point. And those are two really good players. You've got Dufour, who is listed as a winger, and Ishakov, who could be a center. That could be some very valuable depth for the Islanders, depending on how things work out. Now, looking at the blue line, things have definitely gotten a little bit thin on this blue line, which used to be a strength for the Islanders. Not really the case anymore, especially with guys like Parker Witherspoon and Mitch Van de Sample leaving the organization. It's definitely changed things up a decent amount. So not really much going on there. Goaltending-wise, you got Jakub Skarek and Tristan Lennox. Tristan Lennox could be a really good prospect at some point for the Islanders. Same thing for Jakub Skarek. With the Islanders signing Semyon Varlamov to that extension. I definitely have some concerns about Skarik's future with the Islanders, or at the very least in the NHL. His numbers haven't been all that impressive in Bridgeport, which is probably a big part of that reason, and that's probably why the Islanders decided to keep Varlamov, because they said, well, Skarik's numbers really haven't been anything great, so we're just not really going to be comfortable enough riding with that. So the Islanders think they have something good with Varley and Sorokin, and I agree. It just, I think, is going to come at the cost in terms of especially the way the window is right now. I would see Skarik as a guy that could be on his way out of the organization at some point. With that said, my breakout player is Ruslan Ishkov. If he can get into the Islanders lineup, that's the problem, is his ability to get into the lineup. Because, you know, with this current group, he wouldn't be seeing the ice. But everybody else, we know what they are, right? You look at the center depth, you got Horvat, you got Nelson, Pajot, and Cizikas. Ishkov is not getting in over any of those guys. It would have to take some kind of injury to somebody in order for him to step in. And I think there was an opportunity there for him to really be a prolific goal scorer. There's a guy that can score, can produce, but he's got to get an opportunity. And I'm not sold on that, but other than him, there isn't anybody else that I look at that could be a real breakout player. We know what they are. We know what Pelech is. Pulak, Dobson, Aho, Romanov, and Mayfield. And the goaltending's the same. The forward group pretty much the same. You know, the only real guy I could say is a breakout currently listed on the roster could be like a Wahlstrom or a Fasching. That's about it. So I'm going to go with Ruslan Ishkov as my breakout player. But again, he might not even make the NHL roster. So that leaves me with my prediction, because looking at the Islanders, it's frustrating because this is a team that we hope to see some kind of movement. But if you know the Lou Lamoriello era, he doesn't make he doesn't make any moves, and they double down on the kind of winning now mode, bringing in Bo Horvat, trading out Ratu, and this is a kind of danger zone for the Islanders, because with the emergence of teams like Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit, the Islanders' chances of making the playoffs is definitely growing slim. And then you consider the fact that it could be the nail in the coffin with just the Penguins getting better, bringing in Erik Karlsson and making some moves there in Pittsburgh. This is going to be tough for the Islanders to make the playoffs, and that's why I have them winning 40 to 45 wins this season, between 90 to 95 points, and I'm not guaranteeing that they make the playoffs. I'm not sold that they get in. We still have a couple weeks till I make my official playoffs versus non-playoff teams, but I'd be very concerned right now. As a New York Islanders fan, I am very concerned. And you should be too if you're an Islanders fan, in terms of this team making the playoffs, because this division is difficult. And like I said, if you start getting to the talk of, we're all talking about basically how the top three are Carolina, New Jersey, and the Rangers, that means you're now in wild card territory. And not only do you have to worry about teams like Pittsburgh and Columbus who are in your division, now you have to worry about Buffalo, Ottawa, and Detroit, who all are definitely going to be players in the wild card situation in the Eastern Conference. And to be honest, of all those teams, the Islanders have improved the least. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of the New York Islanders? Do you think they're going to get back to the playoffs? Do you think this year of stunted growth and not much happening in the offseason is going to come back to bite the Islanders? Let me know your guys' thoughts. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.